The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Introduction. The Tao Te Ching is not only the most influential classical text of Chinese philosophy. It is also one of the most widely read examples of what perhaps best can be described as wisdom literature. According to tradition, the Tao Te Ching was written in the 6th century BC by the Taoist sage Lao Tzu, a contemporary of Confucius. Kuang Fu Tzu, 551 to 479 BC. However, analysis of the text's vocabulary and style suggests a date sometime in the late 4th or early 3rd century BC. Several ancient versions of the Chinese text exist, but the oldest extant version was discovered in 1993 in a tomb near the town of Guodian in Hubei province. Written on numerous slips of bamboo, a common writing material in ancient China, this text has been dated prior to 300 BC. Initially, the text was known simply as the Lao Tzu, but during the Han period, 1st century BC to 1st century AD, it became more widely known under its present name of the Tao Te Ching, a title that derives from the traditional division of the book's 81 short chapters into 2 sections. The first section, chapters 1 to 37, opens with an explanation of the enigmatic nature of the Tao, literally, the way, while the second, chapters 38 to 81, opens with an explanation of the workings of Te, virtue, power, quality, or the good. The third word, namely Ching, means classic, and so Tao Te Ching can be translated as the classic of the way and its power, or virtue. Although the Tao Te Ching is of primary importance for the Taoist school of Chinese philosophy as well as the Taoist religion and Chinese Buddhism, its translation into hundreds of languages has made it available to a worldwide audience. The original text comprised around 5,000 Chinese characters, some of which have multiple meanings. It was also written in a cryptic style. If we add to this the differences between Chinese and Western thought and the passage of time between the writings of the original text and the present day, we can begin to appreciate the difficulties faced by translators in their efforts to provide an effective translation of the Tao Te Ching that is accessible to a modern Western audience. In spite of these difficulties, over 40 translations exist in print in English alone, plus 30 or more online. However, a simple side-by-side comparison of 2 or more translations will reveal the wide-ranging differences in interpretation adopted by individual translators. But this is hardly surprising in view of the enigmatic nature of the Tao itself and the ambiguous style of the Tao Te Ching. John H. MacDonald, the author of the translation presented here, consulted a number of different versions of the text in an attempt to find a consensus between them and produce a definitive translation of this ancient Chinese classic. Most translations refer to the sage or master as being exclusively masculine in gender, but MacDonald chose the feminine because a master is aware of both, but chooses the least likely of the two, as the following verse shows. Know the masculine, but keep to the feminine, and become a watershed to the world. Chapter 28. The little we know about Lao Tzu comes from the Shi Chi, records of the historian, compiled towards the beginning of the 1st century BC by the Han historian Su Ma Qian, 145 to 85 BC. The name Lao Tzu is actually an honorific title meaning old master, according to Su Ma Qian. His given name was Li Ertan. Born in the village of Chuzhen in the state of Xiu, in later life he became an archivist at the court of the Shou dynasty. Suma Xian also recounts two events from Lao Tzu's life. The first of these was a visit by Confucius, who asked Lao Tzu to tutor him in the traditional rites. Lao Tzu replied in words that express some of the central themes of the Tao Te Ching, saying, "Those you talk about have turned to dust. All that remains is their words. When a nobleman lives in good times, he goes to court in a carriage. But when times are hard, he goes where the wind blows. Some people say that a wise merchant hides his wealth and thus appears to be poor. Likewise, the sage, if he has great inner virtue, he appears outwardly to be a fool. Stop being so arrogant with all your questions, your self-importance, and your overbearing obsessions. None of this is the real you. That is all I have to say to you." When Confucius rejoined his followers, he described his meeting with Lao Tzu thus: "I know that birds fly, fish swim, and animals run. Creatures that run can be trapped, those that swim can be caught in nets, those that fly can be shot down. But what to do with a dragon, I do not know. It rides on the clouds and the wind. Today I met Lao Tzu, and he is like a dragon." The second event, related by Su Ma Qian, is the final journey of Lao Tzu. Despairing at the moral decline of the kingdom and people's obsessive desire for possessions and status, Lao Tzu set off on a water buffalo to travel to the west. According to some traditions, he was withdrawing from the world to become a hermit, but the story takes on a slightly different meaning when we consider that in Chinese mythology, the West is the land of the afterlife. When he reached the western gate of the kingdom in the mountain pass at Hangku, he was recognized as a sage by Kuan Yin, the keeper of the pass, who asked Lao Tzu to write down his knowledge of the Tao before retiring from the world. Lao Tzu duly obliged, and according to tradition, wrote the book in one night. The next day, the sage presented the book to Kuan Yin, saying, "This book is no different from other books in that it is a dead thing, but you can bring it to life if you put into practice what is written in it." With that, Lao Tzu mounted his water buffalo and departed for the west, never to be seen again. Whether or not a single individual known as Lao Tzu, the Old Master, was the author of the Tao Te Ching, it is now openly questioned by many scholars, as is his historical existence. Instead, it is suggested that the text is more in the nature of an anthology of sayings compiled over an extended period of time before taking its present form. What is beyond question, however, is the profound nature of the universal wisdom contained in this seminal work on the Tao. The Tao Te Ching The Tao Te Ching is essentially about the Tao, but a number of related themes recur throughout the text. The most significant of these are the sage or master, rulers and government, and non-action, Wu Wei. The Tao. The Chinese word Tao is generally translated as the way, the implication being that it refers to a spiritual way or path. It also has a much wider, more enigmatic meaning than this, as indicated by the opening lines of the Tao Te Ching. The Tao that can be described is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be spoken is not the eternal name. The Tao Te Ching goes on to tell us that the Tao is not only older than the concept of God, it is both intangible and evasive, and therefore beyond all concepts. It may be regarded as the mother of the universe, for it alone nourishes and completes all things. The Tao has always existed, and is even beyond existing and not existing. 21, from which we can infer that the Tao denotes an ultimate way, the way of absolute reality, i.e., reality purely and simply as it is, unadulterated by our concepts and opinions. Yet when the Tao is looked at, there is nothing for people to see. When listened for, there is nothing for them to hear. Moreover, the world cannot understand it, since the Tao lies beyond the grasp of our normal understanding, or as the Tao Te Ching tells us elsewhere, our basic understandings are not from the Tao because they come from the depths of our misunderstanding. 38. If we wish to increase our capacity for understanding and thereby draw closer to the Tao, we are advised to change our way of thinking because the more knowledge you seek, the less you will understand. We are encouraged to follow the example of the Master who learns by unlearning, thus she is able to understand all things. The Sage or Master. The sage or master is one who, having become unlearned by emptying him or herself of all concepts and opinions, is filled with the Tao and is like a newborn child. 55. Having attained unity with the Tao, 39, the master no longer has a self. That is to say, he or she has attained a state of consciousness which is very different from the state we normally experience because the master has no mind of her own. His or her consciousness is as one with the Tao, which is itself without wants and desires, and so the master is no longer governed by the whims and desires of the ego. Freed from desire, you can see the hidden mystery. By having desire, you can only see what is visibly real. As the master freely admits, I am different from ordinary people. I nurse from the great mother's, Tao's breasts. Once we have found the mother, we begin to know what her children should be. When we know we are the mother's child, we begin to guard the qualities. We begin to guard the qualities of the mother in us. Because the master is filled with the qualities or virtues of the Tao, we find the Tao Te Ching employing in similar expressions for both. For example, the Tao is likened to the uncarved block, while the master, whose union with the Tao has brought about his or her completion, is whole as an uncarved block of wood. The Tao never acts with force. Likewise, the master shuns the use of violence. The Tao does not compete, and the Tao of the wise person acts by not competing. Rulers and government. The historian Sima Xian relates Lao Tzu's departure for the West during a period of moral decline. As we have seen, however, Sima Xian's traditional 6th century BC dating for the writing of the Tao Te Ching differs from the scholastic view, which places it much later, in the late 4th or early 3rd century BC during the aptly named Warring States period, 480 to 222 BC, a period when regional warlords sought to annex smaller states in the declining years of the Zhou dynasty. Significantly, both datings point to the Tao Te Ching having been written during a time of moral and political decline, a fitting context for the guidance it offers to those who rule or govern. According to the Tao Te Ching, the best leaders are those the people hardly know exist. They become servants of their people, for only he who is the lowest servant of the kingdom is worthy of becoming its ruler. Good government is unobtrusive and thus enables the people to become whole. It doesn't interfere with the people unnecessarily. Governing a large country is like frying small fish. Too much poking spoils the meat. Wise rulers are those who follow the way of the Tao, for if a ruler abides by its principles, then her people will willingly follow. Non-action or wu-wei. The Tao Te Ching tells us that true sayings seem contradictory, and there are possibly few sayings more contradictory than those relating to the principle of non-action or wu-wei. For example, we are advised to act by not acting, do by not doing, and we are told that the master accomplishes much without doing anything. In mastering the ego or self, rather than allowing it to master him or her, The master is freed from the need to act out of personal desire or self-interest and thus becomes an empty vehicle for the Tao. In this liberated state of being rather than doing, the master enjoys that ultimate freedom, the freedom of no choice, because he does nothing. It is the Tao which accomplishes things through him. For those who practice not doing, everything will fall into place. The Tao Te Ching was written 2,500 years ago. In many respects, the world is now a very different place, thanks to advances in science and technology, transport and communication, and the emergence of the global economy. Yet in others, the world is much the same as it was in the Warring States period, for we are still fighting wars, still thirsting after power and status, and still obsessed with the acquisition of wealth and possessions. In that respect, the timeless wisdom that lies at the heart of the Tao Te Ching is just as relevant today as it was 2,500 years ago. Embrace simplicity. Put others first. Desire little. Without opening your door, you can know the whole world. Without looking out of your window, you can understand the way of the Tao. John Baldock. The Tao Te Ching. Number 1. The Tao that can be described is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be spoken is not the eternal name. The nameless is the boundary of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of creation. Freed from desire, you can see the hidden mystery. By having desire, you can only see what is visibly real. Yet mystery and reality emerge from the same source. The source is called darkness. Darkness, born from darkness, the beginning of all understanding. Number 2. When people see things as beautiful, ugliness is created. When people see things as good, evil is created. Being and non-being produce each other. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short define each other. High and low oppose each other. Fore and aft follow each other. Therefore the master can act without doing anything, and teach without saying a word. Things come her way and she does not stop them. Things leave and she lets them go. She has without possessing, and acts without any expectations. When her work is done, she takes no credit. That is why it will last forever. Number 3. If you overesteem talented individuals, people will become overly competitive. If you overvalue possessions, people will begin to steal. Do not display your treasures, or people will become envious. Your master leads by emptying people's minds, filling their bellies, weakening their ambitions, and making them become strong, preferring simplicity and freedom from desires, avoiding the pitfalls of knowledge and wrong action. For those who practice not doing, everything will fall into place. The Tao is like an empty container. It can never be emptied and can never be filled. Infinitely deep, it is the source of all things. It dulls the sharp, unties the knotted, shades the lighted, and unites all of creation with dust. It is hidden but always present. I don't know who gave birth to it. It is older than the concept of God. Number 5. Heaven and earth are impartial. They treat all of creation as straw dogs. The master doesn't take sides. She treats everyone like a straw dog. The space between heaven and earth is like a bellows. It is empty, yet has not lost its power. The more it is used, the more it produces. The more you talk of it, the less you comprehend. It is better not to speak of things you do not understand. Number 6. The spirit of emptiness is immortal. It is called the Great Mother, because it gives birth to heaven and earth. It is like a vapor, barely seen but always present. Use it effortlessly. Number 7. The Tao of heaven is eternal, and the earth is long enduring. Why are they long enduring? They do not live for themselves. Thus they are present for all beings. The Master puts himself last and finds herself in the place of authority. She detaches herself from all things. Therefore she is united with all things. She gives no thought to self. She is perfectly fulfilled. Number 8. The supreme good is like water, which benefits all of creation, without trying to compete with it. It gathers in unpopular places. Thus it is like the Tao. The location makes the dwelling good. Depth of understanding makes the mind good. A kind heart makes the giving good. Integrity makes the government good. Accomplishment makes your labors good. Proper timing makes the decision good. Only when there is no competition will we all live in peace. Number 9. It is easier to carry an empty cup than one that is filled to the brim. The sharper the knife, the easier it is to dull. The more wealth you possess, the harder it is to protect. Pride brings its own trouble. When you have accomplished your goal, simply walk away. This is the path of heaven. This is the pathway to heaven. Number 10. Nurture the darkness of your soul until you become whole. Can you do this and not fail? Can you focus your life breath until you become supple as a newborn child? While you cleanse your inner vision, will you be found without fault? Can you love people and lead them without forcing your will on them? When heaven gives and takes away, can you be content with the outcome? When you understand all things, can you step back from your own understanding? Giving birth and nourishing, making without possessing, expecting nothing in return, to grow yet not to control. This is the mysterious virtue. (11) 30 spokes are joined together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that allows the wheel to function. We mold clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that makes the vessel useful. We fashion wood for a house, but it is the emptiness inside that makes it livable. We work with the substantial, but the emptiness is what we use. Number 12. 5 colors blind the eye. 5 notes deafen the ear. 5 flavors make the palate go stale. Too much activity deranges the mind. Too much wealth causes crime. The master acts on what she feels and not what she sees. She shuns the latter and prefers to seek the former. Success is as dangerous as failure, and we are often our own worst enemy. What does it mean that success is as dangerous as failure? He who is superior is also someone's subordinate. Receiving favor and losing it both cause alarm. That is what is meant by success is as dangerous as failure. What does it mean that we are often our own worst enemy? The reason I have an enemy is because I have self. If I no longer had a self, I would no longer have an enemy. Love the whole world as if it were yourself. Then you will truly care for all things.